Call the Snoqualmie City Council meeting to order. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Ross, can you please lead us?
I can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, can you please take the roll call?
Councilmember Jeans.
Here.
Councilmember Ross.
Here.
Councilmember Holloway.
Here.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Here.
Councilmember Lassay.
Here.
Councilmember Sendwell.
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Here.
Mayor Larson.
I am here. And everyone is in attendance. So at this time, I'm going to ask the city clerk or the Councilmember Jim Mayhew's seat was an appointed seat, and so it was subject to being immediately replaced had he not won his most recent reelection. And so he is the only one that requires tonight. Of the three seats that are up, two will be sworn in first week of January. But Councilmember Mayhew needs to be sworn in at this time tonight because this was an appointed seat. So with that, I'll turn it over to the city clerk.
I wonder why he's wearing a suit.
Come on up. Congratulations. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James Mayhew, having been duly elected to the office of City Council, position number 4,
To the office of City Council, Position 4,
of the City of Snoqualmie, Washington,
the City of Snoqualmie, Washington,
on November 5th, 2019,
on November 5th, 2019,
for a short and full term,
for a short and full term,
swear that I will faithfully
swear that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of my office
of my office
as prescribed by law
as prescribed by law
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and I will support and maintain
and I will support and maintain
all valid ordinances
all valid ordinances
of the City of Snoqualmie,
of the City of Snoqualmie,
the laws and Constitution
the laws and Constitution
of the State of Washington
of the State of Washington,
and the United States of America,
and the United States of America,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. Sign here, then you can take these with you. Whoops.
Why people have to throw stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mayhew, congratulations. Look forward to working with you for another 2 years at least. And would you like to say anything at all before we continue?
No.
Okay,
Say thank you.
very good. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Shepherd.
Can we scroll up to see the consent agenda? Can we see the rest of it?
Oh, yeah. I'll ask you.
So I'd like to pull off AB 19149 and the warrants.
Agenda Bill 19149 and the warrants?
Correct.
Okay. Councilmember Mayhew and Councilmember Sunwell?
So, it's been a regular practice to pull off all the warrants, including paychecks for city employees. My understanding is you can pull off specific warrants and not sacrifice all the other warrants. Is that true? And if so, if there's a specific warrant or set of warrants that could be removed, that seems sending a little bit better message to our hardworking city employees. Is that a possibility?
Certainly, I think council's prerogative, what it wishes to leave on the consent or.
So you don't have to pull off all the warrants, you can pull off specific ones, is that correct?
Yes.
And so I guess my question to Councilmember Shepherd, or perhaps invitation, is do you truly intend to have all of them pulled off, including payroll? Or are there specific ones that you want pulled off?
I don't have the numbers of the checks that I'd like to pull off at this moment, so I'm pulling them all off at this time.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion, council? All right. Oh, Councilmember Mayhew, you had a question or comment?
Just point
I
of
didn't-
information as to whether Councilmember Shepherd intended to pull all of the warrants or just
Oh, okay.
specific ones.
Yeah. I mean, and is the current council policy on this, consent agenda means essentially unanimous consent. So if any one member is not unanimous and they can pull off anything and everything, council could, of course, address that policy and maybe require a second for anything to be pulled, but that's entirely up to the council. All right, if there's no further discussion, then with those changes, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion for.
Motion to reconsider?
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, motion a second to reconsider. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so I was remiss. I was assuring our Attorney General, Bob Sturbank, I would not forget to put the agenda that's just been put before you, the hard copy that we just realized we needed to jump on tonight. So I'll let him cue that up and explain it if he could.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the promotion, too. It's much appreciated.
Oh, what did I say?
Attorney General.
Oh, there you go.
You know, some we don't know, huh?
Wow. All right.
You have more power than you thought. So what's in front of you is a brief housekeeping agenda item. Due to the time lapse over the holiday, Mr. Yasiji, whom the council knows, has been hard at work, and unbeknownst to him and us, the 150 days in his prior contract term expired. And in order to carry him through the rest of the year while the city continues with its recruitment process for the Parks and Public Works Director position, what you have in front of you is the nature of a renewal. It's the same contract, same terms. It just provides for the number of hours and the unexpended dollar amount that had been under the other contract, which is approximately $36,000 and change, and approximately 224 hours. And with the council's pleasure, the administration would like to add that to tonight's agenda, and I can address the specifics of the agenda bill at the appropriate time.
So at this time, we could just add it to the agenda and then take it up for further discussion under the, I guess this would be F&A. Councilmember Mayhew.
So moved?
Second.
All right, motion a second to add. Do we have an agenda bill number for this?
Defer to the city clerk.
All right. An extension of the personal services agreement for the Parks and Public Works Services, or interim director. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. All right, so please help remind me to take that up by, I assume, under F&A. Councilmember Mayhew.
Point of order, Mayor, I think we now need to
Yes.
approve the agenda. Okay.
Right. Okay, so if there any further discussion or anything else the mayor forgot? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. All right, with that, at this time, we're going to move on to public hearings, presentations, proclamations, and appointments. And first, we'd like to introduce our new Assistant Attorney General. Attorney. Sorry. Anna Astrakhan. And Bob, I don't know if you want to give a little background and then invite Anna to come forward. Or?
Sure, Anna, why don't you come on up to the podium, and Mayor and Council wish to
I feel like
present.
we should all rise if she's
Well,
the assistant. Attorney.
Anna comes to us by way of East Coast Columbia University, Boston University Law School, and a litigation practice in aviation and international human rights law before coming out to the West Coast, where she has done municipal work at the City of Shoreline and also litigation at the Social Security Administration. She's joined us. We're happy to have her. Great legal mind. I'm sure you'll be seeing more of her. And Anna, counsel, if you'd like to say anything, the microphone is yours.
Sure, I'll be very brief. Good evening. I'm delighted to be here. This is the start of my third week, and everyone has been very welcoming and very engaged with their work and very passionate about what they do here. So I am excited to be here, and I look forward to working with you and to helping you as I can. Thank you.
Welcome, Anna. Did any of the council have any questions for Anna? All right. Thank you, Anna, and welcome aboard. Look forward to working with you. And then our next sweet and sour presentation or issue to, I don't know, celebrate or mourn, depending on how you look at it, or maybe a little bit of both, is recognizing Bob Larson for his now 15 years of service to the city of Snoqualmie. I hearken back to when Bob first came on our scene. It was about 16 years ago, I think. Fuzzy was mayor. Fuzzy needed to hire a new city administrator and went through a hiring process, and then I was grateful that he invited me to be on the hiring committee. There was another gentleman from out in the Midwest who actually was Fuzzy's first pick. I was a little nervous about him, though, as I shared with Fuzzy. He seemed a little too intense. And the history at that time was, of course, the city was going through some dramatic changes, and as Colleen can attest to, too, there was a lot of nervousness in historic Snoqualmie about this rapid new community growing and a lot of tension between those two parts of the community. And I was nervous that we didn't need someone who maybe added to that tension with a lot of high energy. It kind of worked out to where in the negotiations it fell apart, and Fuzzy called me up at one point and said, well, what about this other guy, Bob Larson? Which I was like, yes, because Bob was my first choice. He, on the other hand, had a temperament that was just very calming, very steady, very professional, and I thought he was a perfect fit for what the city needed. And I think Fuzzy was very grateful for that too, for that temperament and Bob's professionalism. Yeah, and that proved to serve the city quite well in a time of just tremendous growth and change. There's few of us old timers left around here anymore that have been around that long, with the Pat Andersons and Nancy Tuckers and others. But words cannot express how profoundly Bob has impacted the community. I was just over earlier this evening recognizing or thanking and recognizing Ken Hearing for his 16 years of service as a mayor. And although it's an off-color comment to perhaps hear, some people before I decided to run for mayor, because I was on the council for a few years, said, well, you really feel like you're up for the job? And I said, well, I feel kind of like it's a job that a dancing monkey could do. And what I meant by that is not to offend. It was really a compliment to the staff, because as a council member, I come to quickly find out that, look, you don't, you're surrounded by such competent and phenomenal people that are committed to running a city, that you only need to have one quality and be smart enough to do that, and that's to have enough humility to trust in the staff to help you succeed, because that's what they're all working hard to do, is to help you look good and help you succeed in the community. And so anything that I'm getting kudos for and praise, there's often very little of that I've done. It's mostly the staff that have been lifting me up and carrying me and behind me and working with the council too. And so I just cannot express how much Bob has made an impact on he and the other folks that are behind the scenes really doing the heavy lifting and the tough work. And often the politicians like myself are getting the credit out in the public. But I just want to do a big kudos to his service for all those years. And he leaves a legacy of which he should be extraordinarily proud in that 15 years. I wish you all the best, Bob. I have great respect for the fact that it'd have been easy for you to probably stay here and kind of coast through the remaining years of your tenure. I don't know if it's public, but I'll mention that Bob's got a big birthday. He just hit the big 6-0, so at least 5 more years under the belt.
Put it all out there. Big baby.
But he's not sitting down and resting. He's taking on a new challenge, and that's a big challenge to get into a new organization and shake it up. But it's going to be a challenge to him, and I think a personal one for him. It says a lot about his willingness to just not, again, coast, but always to raise the bar and take on the next challenge. And I wish him the best. I know he'll do phenomenal down there. Gig Harbor is very blessed and fortunate to have him. With that, during his 15 years of dedicated and exemplary service as city administrator, Robert J. Larson played a central role in guiding the city through an unprecedented, historic, and challenging time of growth and change. Due to his contributions, good judgment, and steady leadership, the city of Snoqualmie is now recognized as one of the safest and most desirable places to live in the country. Bob leaves a legacy that will serve Snoqualmie for generations. In honor and recognition of exceptional leadership and public service, a key to the city of Snoqualmie is presented to Robert J. Larson on this 9th day of December 2019. So thank you, Bob.
Probably should check with him if he wants to see pictures. It'd make it awkward for him, but exclude me, just me from it.
Better be careful, Bob, you're hanging up.
I know, right, Bob? Come on, you guys, get closer together. Come on, come on. Little squeeze. Come on.
Like it's a senior staff doing your please.
The senior staff members.
Staff's there, seniors? Yeah.
You're not old enough to be a senior, Mark. Mark. And junior staff. He- She's just got staff.
What, you won't Bob at the end?
Hiding.
Come
I'm
on,
not
you guys, get a
department
little
head.
closer, come on, like you like each other, come on. There you go. Who's missing?
Come on, you guys, act like you like each other.
All of us? Yeah, it'll work.
There you go. Hug into Robert there. Spoon with Robert now. Yeah, bring him down. Yes, that's his kind of. Keep that in.
Let's do one more now. Let's get the taller guys in the back.
Get ready, Amos.
Come on, get it together, kids. Where's Joan? Can I get Joan in that picture?
No, it's
Huh?
ready. Okay.
We'll be signing these later in the Fuzzy, can I get a picture with Bob, please?
Yeah, Fuzzy and Bob, wow, that's cool.
So the young guy here.
Wow. Wow. Nice.
Don't get my cupcake, get a picture now.
I know. Yay, anybody else?
Thank you.
Steal this back, Bob.
That's fine.
Thank you. Mayor Larson,
Yes,
should I?
yes, please. So, just to cue it up, Bob had asked me last week, he thought they were doing the SCA networking dinner that was honoring some of the, like Mayor Hearing and some other long-serving mayors and folks in the community. And I said, no, that was the dinner before. He said, oh, I don't need to come. Well, unbeknownst to me, he did need to come, and he knew that. He served on the board of the SCA, and they did a recognition of all those that were heading out the door that year. So I'm going to ask our liaison to the Sound Cities Association, on behalf of the Sound Cities, Councilmember Catherine Ross, to present the award to Bob on their behalf.
So this is due to Bob's involvement in Sound City Association and also being on the board of directors. And wish you were there to receive this. It's a beautiful award.
All right. Joan, you got to get a picture, because I promised SCA we'd do the award and send it along to them.
We got to be out of film by now.
Film?
Bob knows what film is. Actually, Bob knows what before film was, right? Oh, yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Pictograph.
Pictograph?
Yeah, cave dwelling drawings.
Silver plate. Going through security, they still got the ISO 800. They still buy it? Yeah. Anything over, I guess, 800.
Well, again, thank you, Bob, and congratulations on your new opportunities in Gig Harbor. All right, at this time, we'll provide time for citizens to comment on items not on the agenda. First, a few, well, actually, I think everybody here knows the ground rules, right? So let's save a little time tonight and just jump into it. We have a sign-up sheet. Fuzzy, I think you're the first one on the sign-up sheet, so if you want to speak at this time.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Chief.
go ahead.
Fuzzy Fletcher, 7749 Maple Avenue Southeast. Council, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity. I'll keep it short. I'm a deaf guy, so feel free to use your microphones as well as possible. Thank you. What I'm here to talk about was just something that I didn't think the citizens all knew, that I thought maybe we could share with them, or you all could share with them. And the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan that the city has adopted, it is now being used by the city. And under the basic plan, which is the first section of the plan, it states in there, and I'll read it. Therefore, each citizen is personally responsible for preparing to meet their own emergency needs for at least 1 week. This preparedness items include having a plan, stocking supplies, learning skills like first aid and CPR, and reducing hazards in the home and workplace. And I'm pretty sure that there's a whole lot of citizens out there that don't realize that that's their responsibility. And I've been doing emergency management for a long time, and I can tell you that we have a great police, fire, and emergency group here, and they're going to be up to their neck in alligators in about 15 seconds after there's an emergency here. So I would just like to promote the idea that citizens kind of take care of themselves, get ready to take care of themselves for that week. And I just thought it would be helpful if the city in some way, shape, or form let everybody know that that's their responsibility. So thank you for the opportunity to bring that up. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Fuzzy. Rebecca?
Hello, Rebecca Bastian. I live with him down on Maple and Maple, the end of Mayor Row. Council, staff, and Mayor, wow, Bob. It's a hard time to be leaving us right now. Wish you could stick it out a little bit more, but wish you all the best. And I know Colleen and I might be making a road trip down to see you there, but I don't know what kind of magic you could do for us or for council. This is always a hard subject to bring up, but we're not getting the answers we need or correspondent or finding out who, what, where, when, why, how, or anything about sister cities. And it just seems to have gone mute, and I'm not going to stop talking about it. And if we're going to continue having a sister cities relationship, which so many people don't know or understand how we get our foreign exchange students, how the money works, and nobody seems to be able to answer that question. I really hope before you leave that you can deliver something to council for them to work on, because I'm not going to stop talking about it. So whatever you have that could help them along with the rest of us, it would be greatly appreciated before you leave. And I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Becky. Wayne?
Wayne Russell, 8438 Meadowbrook Way / Wildcat Way Southeast. Anyhow, first of all, I'd like to commend all the people that are maybe listening to this that showed up for the Riverwalk, the revetment and everything, and all the citizens, because it was a really great turnout. And they voiced their concerns. The mayor even took polls, and again, it was a really good meeting. Mr. Mayhew was there. I think you were there too, Sean, weren't you? No? Okay. But anyhow, the other thing I've got, Mr. Mayor, is, again, I have to mention the East Berm. I already talked to Brian about it. That Brian and Sean was at that meeting at Public Works. But anyhow, I've got 3 photos here I'll give to Jeannie.
Thank you.
Anyhow, the photos are of the berm that is breached east of the weir. The weir is actually higher than where the Borst Lake berm is breached, and the water is right up to the road. And you can see logs that floated in your, I'll call it an event, so-called flood event in October. And a year ago on Thanksgiving, we also had water. The Mill Pond Road was closed. And if that water would have been probably a foot higher, those logs that I have those photos of would have been in the road, just like before the Jeannie Hansen berm was put in and the whole sort yard ended up in the road. And I don't like bringing that one up, but that one is really a concern because it is right up against the road. I talked to Brian, they're keeping an eye on it. But I would say from last February that the part that breached is probably increased by 10 to 20 feet. You've probably got a total of about 100 feet that's open. And anybody that really thinks about it, if the weir is up here and that breach is here, where's the water going to flow back to the river? You know, it's going right over the Mill Pond Road. and you're going to wash out that road, and I think the cost of fixing the road is going to be rather significant. And since Weyerhaeuser still owns that property, I think somehow we got to get them to fix that, rather than us having to repair a road. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. And I'll just say I love that you always introduce yourself as living on Meadowbrook/Wildcat Way. It's a nice honor to the students. So, anybody else like to speak at this time? Go ahead, Wayne. I think you still have a few.
I did talk to Fuzzy about it too, and we did call Clayton Littlejohn, and he was only contracted by Weyerhaeuser, and he did about 90% of the work.
He did, yeah.
Okay, and it wasn't to remove the whole berm like we all thought it was.
Right. But unfortunately, he did that willingly. All right, thank you, Wayne. Anybody else at this time that didn't get a chance to sign up that wants to speak? Okay. Colleen, I think you're our only public left that hasn't spoken, so no pressure.
Sometimes it's better just to stay that way.
Learned that from 16 years of being an elected official. Thank you. All right. So with that, then we're going to move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below being acted by one motion. Action items include minutes for the November 25th, 2019 special and regular council meetings. Other approvals include Agenda Bill 19147, cancellation of council committee meetings regularly scheduled for December 16th and 17th, 2019, the cancellation of the December 23rd, 2019 council meeting. Agenda Bill 19148, Resolution 1526, canceling certain city-paid warrants. Agenda Bill 19151, Resolution 1530, ratifying the proclamation of emergency for the Snoqualmie Valley Shelter Services temporary overnight warming shelter. Do I have a motion, council?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. As stated, is there any member of the public that would like to comment on any of these items prior to action? Seeing no one move forward, any discussion, council? Councilmember Shepherd.
I just want to be clear, we did pull off AB 19149, correct?
I did not read that into the
Okay.
motion, so.
Thanks.
All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, with that, we move on to reports. Parks and Public Works Committee report.
Let's see, that's not where we do agenda bills, right? Yes, it is. So we have Agenda Bill 19149. Approved Resolution 1528, accepting water reservoir improvements project as complete. Move to approve Resolution 1528, accepting water reservoir improvements project as complete.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19149 as stated by Councilmember Sunwall. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? See no one move forward. Councilmember Sunwall, you want to give a report on this one as the chair?
The work was done, and we're approving it.
All right, very good. That was eloquent. Councilmember Shepherd.
It was that simple.
I'll say, so the purpose of us voting for this is that the work was done correctly, and they're going to be receiving their retainage money. And one of the things that I've been asking for is to get a certificate of completion that's stamped by an engineer, and I haven't seen that yet, and I'd like to see that for this as well.
Brian, do you want to speak to that? As I recall, it's not required for this project. But,
I'm familiar with the form that you're talking about. I don't believe for this particular project that it's required. But we went into it with the thought that it was not required, but we can definitely double check.
Isn't this the one where we increased the budget in order to have it inspected?
Oh, for GNO to do the construction management?
Correct.
Yes.
Or is it I guess the welding and the paint, the kind of paint that was required? And
Oh, that was the paint was specified in the specifications, the special provisions. The inspections, though, were under Gray and Osborne construction management contract.
Okay, so it's my understanding that this is the kind of project that should have some kind of stamped certificate from an engineer. And I asked for that for another one of these, and I never saw it. So I'd like to, for another project where we were releasing the retainer back to the developer, and I would like to get those, a copy of that in the agenda packet before I vote on it, because I think that in order for us to feel confident that it was done appropriately. I want to get some certification that it's been inspected. Some field inspection.
Brian, if you want to hold a second, I have another member of the Parks and Public Works Committee that wanted to maybe perhaps speak to that. Councilmember Hallway, go ahead.
Well, and we did have some of this discussion in Parks and Public Works. I mean, but I guess just point of order, it is staff's opinion that a certificate of completion is not required on this. So I'll lay that there. I guess I would ask, just for education, somehow get us the bullet points of when a certificate of completion is required, when it isn't, sometime next year, educate the council when they might or might not expect such certificate, okay? But in the meantime, staff's determination is the certificate is not needed, so you're not gonna get it. We got what we got. Let's vote it yes or no.
So I'll ask the city attorney to respond to the question as well.
Well, we can certainly, I think I have emailed council on past projects identifying where under the regulations construction completion documents are not required, and those include but aren't limited to situations in which existing facilities are being replaced by like or similar size capacity facilities. With respect to the document that's in front of you, the purpose of that is, as Councilmember Shepherd has alluded, to have the legislative body accept the project as complete and thereby start and run the clock against any claims against retainage, and thereafter to release the retainage to the contractor. It has nothing to do with whether or not the city's construction management engineers issue a certificate of completion, which, if one were required, the city could do now, could do next week, could do next month as well. So that they're two different animals or two different documentary vehicles, if you will.
Councilmember Ross?
And I'd also like to say thank you. Is a $15,000 savings, so you were under budget. Good job.
Councilmember Shepherd?
So coming from a background of having worked in a building inspection department, I know it's critical that we maintain records of everything that's been inspected and been passed, that inspection has been passed. And I know from asking for these kind of certificates when they should have existed, told that they don't exist. So I will vote no if I don't see a copy of the certificate.
Councilmember Mayhew and then Councilmember Holloway.
So I'm baffled by what I'm hearing, because one council member seems to be asking for some document that is completely unrelated to the action in front of us. City Attorney, did I understand that correctly? That whether or not a certificate of completion is required or not required, whether it's issued or not issued, has nothing to do with the action that that's this motion would take. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it seems like that's not germane to the topic, and I don't think we should bring in things that are not germane to the topic.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll await Councilmember Sundwall to come back to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you. And just so 100% sure I don't drop the ball on this one, let's go ahead, because it's just as equally related to Parks and Public Works, take up the hard agenda bill that was dropped on the desk this evening regarding the extension of Ben Yazishi's
So you
contract.
determined that was F&A.
That's F&A.
I'm just saying it's as much Parks and Public Works related. I mean, we could do F&A. Do you guys feel this is more of a financial issue than?
I haven't, I would defer to F&A. I haven't seen this, or I don't. This
None
is
of you have seen it.
This is a contract issue.
Did the contract come through F&A originally, Councilmember Holloway? Do you recall?
Are we counting my years to retirement? It's just,
Bob, do you recall?
I don't recall.
I believe it did, but I'm not definite of that.
Yeah, I don't think it makes any difference really which committee. I just want to make sure I don't forget it, but we'll move on. Any other report for Parks and Public Works Committee?
That should do it.
All right, Community Development Committee, Agenda Bill 19150, Resolution Number 1529, declaring the City Council's intent to adopt legislation to authorize a sales and use tax credit against existing state sales taxes, not involving new sales taxes, for affordable and supportive housing in accordance with Substitute House Bill 1406, Chapter 338, Laws of 2019, providing for severability and effective date and other matters related thereto.
ask the council to listen carefully to the motion I'm making. There seems to be some confusion about it. Move to approve City Council Resolution Number 1529, declaring the City Council's intent to adopt legislation to authorize a sales and use tax credited against existing state sales taxes for affordable and supportive housing in accordance with Substitute House Bill 1406, Chapter 338, Laws of 2019, providing for severability, an effective date, and other matters related thereto. May I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19150 as stated by Councilmember Mayhew, excuse me. You guys look so much alike. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? Seeing no one move forward, any discussion? Councilmember Mayhew, as the chair of the committee, I'll start with you.
So I just point out to fellow council members the action that the motion would have us take tonight is to declare an intent to take a step. The step would involve us imposing a sales and use tax that would be credited against a state sales and use tax that already exists for a net change in tax of 0. That procedural step would then allow us to use that sales tax that we've now enacted, which the state will then credit for, give us a credit against, so that citizens aren't paying any additional amount, which we could then take the proceeds of that and use for certain affordable housing type topics. There is about 6 months that we have to actually decide what we would do with that money and to actually impose the tax. What we're doing tonight is passing or proposing to do is to pass a intent to go on notice with the state that we intend to adopt this. We can ultimately decide not to do that. But if we do not meet this deadline for declaring our intent, then we would not be able to move forward. So no final actions being taken on whether we would or wouldn't impose this tax and what we would do with the proceeds. What this is saying is that there's enough interest that we do think we're going to look at this pretty seriously, and at this point, we have an intent to impose it, and that's what the motion is.
Councilmember Jeans.
Councilmember Mayhew or staff, I'm wondering if we enact this, if we impose this down the line, how much might be available to the city to focus on affordable housing?
Approximately $25,000 a year.
So it's a 20-year tax. And this, well, it's a little complex. There are two things that can be done under the under this state legislation. So in order to take the next step on any of those, either of those two things, we would have to issue in this statement of intent. What is currently being discussed is only taking one of those two possibilities, which is what I just described, something that would have just an offset against a state amount. We get credited for an amount the state is already charging, and that portion would be the $25,000 or so that the mayor indicated, and it goes for 20 years. So you can do the math to see the total amount that would be generated that we could use.
Councilmember Sunwell.
So just to be clear, we already get some sales tax revenue that comes into our city, correct?
Correct.
It's not redirecting any of that portion. Is that correct?
Correct.
So this is redirecting a portion of the state sales tax that the state keeps. And so therefore, things that we fund with our portion of sales tax are not impacted by this, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And for smaller cities such as ours, there's more flexibility to use this money even for, say, the homeless shelter or the Catholic Church and others that do assistance for people who are teetering between a job and they need a little assistance on rent in order to keep them from becoming homeless while they try to get a new job, or even some for assistance with the shelters or things like that. So So it doesn't, although it may not sound like a lot of money, it can be very impactful for some of those efforts as well. Councilmember Shepherd.
So they have an incentive component of this 1406. And it's if you impose additional sales tax, then you can get double what you get if you don't impose an additional sales tax. However, if we were to allow the county to take this, they don't have to increase our sales tax in order to double the amount that can be applied toward affordable housing. So I haven't heard any of the council members talk about considering that. And that would be for the first year. And then after the first year, if we do not increase our sales tax, then half of it would go to the county and half would go to the city. So it's I guess a matter of potentially losing $25,000. So anyway, toward the program, not toward what the city receives. So I think I like the idea of maybe putting in a declaration that we will not levy the tax and allowing the county to get the full effect or opportunity to apply the $50,000 towards affordable housing instead of, for the first year, instead of having the city get $25,000 and the county get nothing.
Councilmember Ross and Councilmember Mayhew.
Having King County receive our money does not mean that we're going to get the benefit in Snoqualmie if they get our $25,000. If we choose to keep the $25,000 here, as Mayor Larson said, we can apply it to Snoqualmie Valley, the shelter services, or we can provide rental assistance, or we can rehabilitate a building, or do operations and maintenance on different facilities. There's a bunch of things that we can do in our city that would help our residents. So I don't see the benefit of giving our money to King County when we don't even know that they would apply it to our city. I do have a question for Mr. Sturbank. If we did the ordinance sooner than the 6 months, I think it's supposed to be done by July, would we start bringing in funds sooner?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, I just want to make the point, if you just look out the window in that direction, you will see a place where tonight homeless people are sheltering tonight. That shelter is one of the places that need here in the city of Snoqualmie is being met. And so the belief that we don't have a need here, that somehow maybe the solution to our need is to put people on buses to some other part of the county, I think is not a great idea. We can see through that window the need right now. And I think taking this step, which adds no taxes to citizens in our city, but provides some additional funds that we can use to try and look after people such as those right across the street, seems like a very smart thing to do here in Snoqualmie, not try and export this sort of problem to somewhere else in the county.
Councilmember Sullivan, just before I go to you, I wanted to ask the staff to clarify, or the city attorney or Mark. I don't know if I clearly understand the issue that Councilmember Shepherd raises is, does the mechanism work such that if we were to choose not to exercise the additional $25,000 through an incentive of raising our local sales tax, it sounded to me like she was saying, well, let's give that portion, that $25,000, that second one that we're not pulling the trigger on to King County, let them do a vote or whatever the mechanism is for them to get it. It didn't necessarily suggest to me that it would be us surrendering then the $25,000 that we're taking through this action tonight. Or would it be? Because I think the response from the council members has been the sense that it would sweep everything away, including
The
this.
correct summary would be that King County already is identified as a participating county. If we don't do this resolution of intent, followed up by the second step, they would get our full portion
All of it, including
Yeah,
the 25,000 here,
exactly.
okay.
If we do this resolution of intent and then the second step and go for the .0073, we would get the 25,000, they would get the second half share.
Oh, they would anyway, without any further council action.
But not in the first year.
The third scenario is if we enact another qualifying tax, go for the full .0146, we would get the full share.
Right, but I just wanted to clarify, I'm not even sure if I understood what you were saying, Councilmember Shepherd, just so we understand, or I understand what the debate's about.
That's correct.
I believe Councilmember Shepherd is referring to a portion of House Bill 1406 that lacks clarity, that may be cleared up this year. Either way, King County has passed their two ordinances. Those were forwarded to the CD committee along to the full council.
So Councilmember Shepherd, what I'm trying to understand is, were you suggesting give all of it to King County, or just keep our 25,000, but then since we're not going to pull the trigger on the second piece, give that to King County?
I was proposing to give it all to King County because it appears that they will be able to double what is applied to affordable housing. But if we if we don't turn it over to them, then if we don't increase our sales tax, then we will get half as much money, and then netting it out, regardless of where it goes, there will be half as much going to affordable housing.
Okay, but it sounds like from what you just explained, Mark, and I don't know if you want to just confirm, City Attorney, we can exercise this action tonight, capture the $25,000, but then without further action, automatically the county can take that latter portion if we don't act on it. Is that correct?
They'll get the second portion. So to be clear, there is a second step regardless of which scenario. If you go for the half share of .0073, we will get the 25,000. The county will get the second half.
Sorry, I'm going
So
to
that's inconsistent with what Arch is saying.
I'm going to go to Councilmember Sunwell and Councilmember Mayhew, do round robin.
Yes,
Then I'll have Councilmember Mayhew go first.
All right.
So the important thing to understand is the action tonight produces no amount, not 25,000, not 50,000, not any other number. It produces zero. It is a necessary step for us to then get either what's referred to as the half share, which is the 25,000, or the full share, which would be 50,000, but will require levying additional taxes beyond this sales tax that would net against the state. But all we're doing tonight is saying that we have an intent to pursue this. And then we have about 6 months to then make up our mind what we would actually do, if anything. But if we don't take this step tonight, then we cannot pursue any of that money. So this is a necessary step to allow us over the next 6 months to decide if we want to, in fact, go for the half share of 25,000 or something more, or allow some portion of it go to the county or all of it to go to the county. But I believe that we've had enough discussions that indicate an intent to pursue at least the half share, that I think we should pass this statement of intent tonight so that we then have that 6 months to really make our decision.
Councilmember Sunwell.
Move to call the question.
All right.
Second.
Have a motion, a second to call the question. All those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right. It passes by a supermajority, 6-1. So no, there'd be no further debate or discussion. We're back to the original motion to, again, as Councilmember Mayhew helped clarify, because the language just say Resolution 1529 declaring the City Council's intent to adopt legislation. We're back to that motion. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Any other reports from the Community Development Committee?
No other report.
All right, Finance Administration Committee. You have a hard copy in front of you, again, for the extension of Ben Yazishi's contract for the interim Parks and Public Works Services consultant.
So to make it official, move to extend professional services agreement with Muni Management for Parks and Public Consulting Services from November 22nd for a extended period for a not to exceed amount of 224 hours or $36,960 plus expenses, not to exceed. As approved, those hours and dollar figures were approved per the original contract. What has happened is we've run out of time.
Second.
All right. Motion as second as stated by Councilmember Holloway. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? All right, seeing no one move forward. Any discussion, Council? Councilmember Lassay and then Sunwell.
Yeah, I thought you were going to blend all three of us into one. That was pretty good. I'm just not clear about what the extension is because it indicates from November 25th to December 9th, 2019. Is this, it doesn't tell me how long this is extending for.
224 hours. So the reference to the time between November 25th and the present date is to pick up work that's been performed past the expiration date of the prior contract.
Yes.
It's included in the 224 hours, though.
So as a follow-up, then, the term is not going past December 9th.
No, it is.
So where does it stipulate the extent of the term?
Just the performance of 224
So
hours.
It's an indefinite time period extension with a not to exceed of 224 hours, call it $37,000.
Mayor, perhaps to clarify,
Doesn't indicate
I'll let Bob do this, but
that's
we go back to November 26th and pick up from there going forward, correct?
Right.
That's included in those hours.
Correct. But in terms of if
Shall also
the
be
work
reimbursed.
proceeds at roughly the rate that it was being performed over the last several months, with deducting some for the holidays, I think that the 224 hours is going to get us, partway into next year, but not especially far, January perhaps, part of February.
Yeah, that's
I'll
correct.
defer to the city
Councilmember
administrator.
Sunwell.
So just to be
Councilmember Holloway.
clear, we have not run out of money, we have run out of time.
Correct.
And we're actually not, with the money we approved, which was, I don't remember how much, back whenever we approved it.
37K.
June. We have reached our time limit, but he has not expended all the hours or the cost, and we're not proposing any additional cost, although we probably will in January, but for now, we're not. This is just extending the time because we used up
Correct.
time quicker than we used up money.
Correct, because the way the prior contract was worded, it referred to 150 days or 868 hours, whichever occurred first. And because of the intensity of the work, we got through 150 hours.
Days.
150 days, thank you, and the length of time it took, but 868 hours were not fully expended, so the number of hours and dollars remaining under that 868 cap are what would provide the term for this new contract.
And as I understand
It's in
it-
the essence of a short.
Whatever extra time you need to actually get him a full-time contract that he'll accept is fine with me.
Well, it's also my understanding, questions directed to both Bobs, that this doesn't commit the city to doing this amount of money. This is sort of a maximum until such time that the council again approves an extension or a greater amount to be spent. So in other words, if we bring someone on board and we no longer need the services, it doesn't commit us to paying that full amount.
That's correct. We can then terminate the contract.
Right. Okay, Councilmember Ross?
But it is 37,000 maximum, right?
Correct.
Right, so we already expended the 140-some thousand, and now this be additional on top of that,
That's correct.
right?
Yes.
Well,
Maximum.
No,
we've expended less than the 143. That 143,000 is 868 hours multiplied by the hourly rate of 165.
Right,
And we've
we-
expended less than the 143, so the amount that is remaining is the amount stated here,
We
the
spent
36,960.
oh, interesting.
So we've expended,
Oh, okay, so we're not going over the 143.
no, we are not.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Well, I think we're already past the deadline. Is it possible that we can put this off till the next council meeting, so we have time to think about it?
Short answer is no, because if you want to continue to avail yourself of Ben's services between now and the 13th of January, when the first council meeting, it would be, we'd have to tell him we have no legal authority by which to contract his services.
We're already there, though.
That's the purpose of this.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
To address that.
So tonight, we're correcting that and then approving additional time. Councilmember Sonnell?
There seems to be a pattern of not wanting to pay employees. I move to call the question.
Second.
All right. There's been a motion to call, and a second to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
Okay, was that 2 nays? All right. Matt, was yours a nay too?
I was an aye.
You were an aye? Okay.
I was a yes.
Okay, so I think I have a supermajority saying to call the question, so the question's been called. There'll be no further discussion on this. We'll go back to the original motion again to approve Agenda Bill 19152, I'm sorry, Agenda Bill 19150, resolution declaring,
No. Doesn't have a number.
oh, no, geez, I'm sorry. That's what I'm
Move to
getting lost
extend
in
the
my notes.
contract.
To approve the agenda bill as stated by Councilmember Holloway. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, motion carries.
Mayor, I
Yes,
just at least want to put a ticker. I would like a discussion of this in F&A following the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's some procedural questions here that need to be addressed.
Okay. Bob, can we get that in a note or?
Jody's got it.
Care of
Jody,
it.
okay. Make sure and add that. We'll get that added to the agenda tomorrow. All right, any other report for
We got
Finance Administration? Oh, I'm sorry, no.
our agenda, yeah.
Agenda Bill 19152, 2020 classification rates and salary schedule for management and professional positions.
Management professional salary classification plan was implemented on January 1, 2006. Mayor Larson, the administrator, are recommending a 3% salary adjustment be applied to all management professional positions and steps. This is reflected in the adopted 2019-2020 biennial budget. Move to approve the 2020 classification rates and salary schedule for management and professional positions.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19152 as stated by Councilmember Holloway. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? Seeing no one move forward, any discussion, council? I'll defer to the chair of the committee to
All right.
introduce it.
Really, and we had discussion of this in F&A. This is really taking into consideration the salary review we did the year prior, keeping our management and professional services in the appropriate tax range or appropriate salary range, considering the cost of living increases and where the market is going for the salaries.
Okay, so this is my recommendation as a mayor, but I want to make sure the council understands the rationale for my recommending this percentage. On one hand, I'm very nervous by the actions on the 1% at the last council meeting, because that's, again, taking away monies that we need to address this precise kind of inflationary cost every year, a 74,000 against the 89,000, and that's not counting police and fire and other contracts. So until we get to a council retreat and kind of do a foundational fiscal outlook, I'm a little nervous about, until a council gives me response in terms of what the priorities are, how about how this would be addressed. Just as I said, $89,000 is just not $89,000. It's $89,000 for every year into the foreseeable future. This is not just $74,000 of increase. It's $74,000 of additional cost every year into the future. So you're approving a significant ongoing commitment tonight. The reason why I still recommend is the 3%, which is if you were at the F&A committee, the staff went through a detailed explanation of how they arrived at that percentage being competitive. It's achieving the council's stated goal that is not deviated to make sure that we remain competitive in our compensation packages, and it's consistent with the other packages that the council approved with fire, police, and Teamsters. And by competitive means to at least make sure that we're attracting and retaining good talent to serve the citizens of this city, and making sure that we're not slipping behind in terms of those compensation packages. So I just want to put that out there and make sure that you know that fully going in. This will have to be, unfortunately, we didn't have the benefit, unless you want to forego this for a month or two and then do it retroactively. We don't have the benefit of just sort of taking that long view and knowing, in light of everything else, what other things might have to be cut, depending on, or, are we going to do more aggressive growth and development to bring in more revenue? Or are we going to cut services, raise fee, if we're not raising fees or taxes accordingly? There's other ways, of course, to raise those than a 1%. So I don't mean that I'm not casting dispersions on the council's decisions. I'm just talking to there's just so many mechanisms and tools we can use to address these issues. So, any further discussion or questions? Councilmember Shepherd?
Okay, so, before I consider a pay increase, I would like to see where we stand with the city's budget, given the series of events that will impact the city's revenue projections, the I-976 and the Salish expansion. And between 2015 and 2018, wages and salaries and personnel benefits was the largest expenditure for the city. And in 2018, it was 23% of the $55 million spent, which was $13.5 million, according to the Washington State Auditor's Office. And then between 2017 and 2018, there was a 7% increase. And between 2016 and 2017, there was a 6% increase. So when we talk about 3%, that's part of the puzzle. It's also, it has to do with when somebody changes their step in their pay, or if we have another position, if we go from part-time to full-time. So the agenda bill to amend the budget has a beginning 2019 fund balance that is $5 million less than the adopted budget on the city's website. So we have something funny going on there. And then 2019, the Q3 financial status report, revenues are at 2.3 million short of 75% estimated for 2019. So I understand that the budget has set aside 5% for salary increases, and the expectation is for cost of living adjustment. However, the city of Issaquah is tightening their belt and giving employees 1%, and I wasn't able to find that kind of information from the cities that we compared ourselves to for the salary survey. There are two components to consider when approving salary increases. They are comparable and can you afford it? In the 2019-2020 biennial budget in brief, the 2021 expenditures is more than the total revenue. So I won't vote to increase salaries because it was included in the budget. The budget has a number of inconsistencies that need to be reconciled beyond a quick verbal explanation. So I'm concerned about, where we are budget-wise. And I know that not all cities are automatically doing a 3% cost of living increase, such as Issaquah. So that's what I have to say.
Councilmember Jeans.
I'll make a comment consistent with Peggy's comment about what did somebody do in another city. That city, like any other cities, have got to consider the big picture and not cherry pick, like, how are we going to solve the problem we're in? We have a problem, and we can't solve it today. And we've got to focus on the retreat to start setting some, reprioritize what we're going to do. And included in that is going to be salaries. A big part of that is going to be a discussion of salaries. But more than anything, the discussion will be, how do we get out of this mess looking at what we spend all our money on and reprioritizing what we do? But I think this is not the time now to vote no on this matter.
Okay, if there's, Councilmember to say?
I just want to ask, just make sure I understand clearly that this 3% salary adjustments was accounted for in the 2019-2020 budget.
That's correct.
And as we are at the midpoint of that budget, there's no indication that that money does not exist.
The revenues, the appropriations are still intact.
Thank you.
But I want to clarify that, again, you're making a commitment that goes beyond next year and the year after, the year after, the year after, so in terms of an increased cost. So that's, Councilmember Mayhew?
Yeah, just want to clarify, because we had some discussion of this at the F&A committee. Actually, this increase is below the amount that was budgeted for, that was appropriated. So the appropriated amount was actually up around 5%. 4.5. Yeah, 4.5 between 4.5% and 5%, so, or between 4 and 5%. So this is not the mayor coming to us and proposing spending the maximum amount that we had previously discussed. It's, I think, a very balanced proposal that continues our priority that this council set, not that the mayor set, that we set a year ago. It's in the materials here, but we voted that our policy as a council was that we wanted to pay staff at the median of comparable or slightly above of comparable cities. And so this is simply executing that priority that we set. And the idea that every 2 weeks someone's going to vote not to pay the employees, in essence, vote to shut the city down, because if you don't have employees, you don't have a city. And now we're not going to give them raises, so they all quit. This kind of shut the city down approach, I think, is very alarming to me. I don't think it's what the residents want from us. I think they want us to look at the budget, be very judicious in how we spend their money. But the notion that we wouldn't give a cost of living increase to our staff, I think is not at all what our residents are asking us to do.
Councilmember Ross.
So this 3% is in line with the 3 union contracts that we signed last year. 3 union contracts, including their deferred compensation. It keeps our salaries so that we're competitive in the marketplace. It allows us to retain our good employees and attract future employees. So I'm for this percentage increase, 3%.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Okay, so as far as what should come first, I think that us knowing what our budget is should come first before we approve more spending. And I think that as far as 5%, I don't know what all was captured in the 5% within the budget that we're not sure we are still in alignment with, since so many things have changed since the budget was established at the beginning of 2019. I think it could include somebody becoming full-time instead of part-time. I believe that was one of the adjustments. So it can be a variety of things. It's not just the pay increases for one particular bargaining unit. But on top of that, when you look at the last 2 years, as far as how much we've increased our total cost for benefits and personnel, it's been over 6% year over year for the last few years. So, you know, this 3% does not represent the total cost of 3%. It's going to be more than that, potentially. So anyway, I feel that it's really important for us to be conscious of what is our future, as far as are we going to be facing a recession? And I want to know, we really haven't looked at this budget. I don't think that I have no confidence that our budget can handle this.
Just to clarify, and Robert, maybe you could speak to it, but I mean, there has not been 6% staff increases. I suspect what the council member has done is added total staff and benefit costs, which includes some additional staff that were added per council member's request, particularly in the finance staff.
Yeah, the past 2 years, we've had a couple directors and termination payouts for certain employees in the MMP group. Right. And we budget, if you recall from the budget sessions, we budgeted, built in a 5% increase in salaries and wages. We built in a 7% increase on benefits based on history. I can tell you safely right now that health increases were almost zero last year, and they're almost zero again this year. So we do, have the budget at this point. And also another point that was made here, I don't know where there was a projection saying that revenues are going to be off. I don't know where that happened. We did have the impact of the saleage, but beyond that, the revenues that we forecasted for the biennium for the operating budget are on track at this point. So I don't think we provided any information otherwise. By the third quarter financial status report that was given to council, that did not include the final payment of property taxes they came in. Again, property taxes are tracking correctly.
If I could just clarify, Mayor, I think it's very important.
Yes.
There has never been a 6% increase.
Right, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. I mean, maybe overall staff cost increases due again to some negotiated,
I think it makes it very clear that year over year, the cost of living adjustments and/or the settlements with our labor unions, the police, fire, and Teamsters have never been anywhere near 6%. They've really approximated somewhere around 3% and sometimes even less. Some years it's even been zero, but I want to share clear we've never gone anywhere near 6% on any pay increases for any employee groups.
all right, I'm going to go round robin and give some other council members an opportunity. Councilmember Holloway and Councilmember Mayhew.
I'd like to call the question.
Second?
Question's been called and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, the motion passes by supermajority. So we're back to the original motion. There's no further debate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion is carried. All right, at this time, we're going to back up on the consent agenda and pick up approval of warrants as stated in the agenda packet.
Move to approve the warrants as stated in the agenda package. May I have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second to approve warrants as stated by Councilmember Holloway and as noted in the agenda packet. Did anybody from the public like to comment on any of these items prior to action? All right, seeing no one move forward, is there any discussion, Council? Councilmember Shepherd.
So the reason that I keep pulling off the warrants has to do with questions that aren't being answered. This week, there were so many warrants that I wasn't able to bring the questions to the Finance Administration Committee. I will be forwarding my questions on to the State Auditor's Office. So I'm going to be voting no for approving warrants.
Any further discussion, Council?
Point of information. Councilman Shepherd, you have not submitted questions to the FNA, and your fallback from there is to submit to the auditor?
Yes.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Those questions won't be submitted to the auditor any more than they were submitted to us because they don't exist. The notion that there are so many warrants is exactly why we hire a whole staff that does a fantastic job of paying warrants. I move to call the question.
Second.
Motion and a second to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nope.
All right, motion's been approved, so we're back to the original motion to approve the warrants without any further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, motion passes. Is there any other report for Finance Administration Committee?
Other than, want to confirm with the council, we've kind of settled on our retreat. Given some of the conversation here, I think we're all in consensus that it's probably at least 2 days of conversation, if nothing else, 2 days to set us up for conversations to proceed after, to occur after that through the year as we go on. So just want to confirm, January 31st, February 1st is our council retreat. Okay, so get prepped. Let's go through some of the questions. Let's set what we're going to do for the next year.
Plan on 2 feet of snow that weekend.
It happened last time, it might happen this time.
And
Yeah,
plan on not full attendance.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you can at least make all of Friday, Councilor, let's say.
Do what I can.
All right.
It's unfortunate we can't come to a date that we can all attend. Again.
If you have further input on the retreat, the city administrator, myself, or working with the current mayor pro tem to hammer out the agenda on that. So if you have any ideas on what you'd like to see or focus, please bring that to his attention. In fact, it reminds me at this time, I'm remiss, and before I forget again, do anticipate that we may be reaching out to the council in the next week or two for a quick, if some of you can come down to the office, fine, otherwise by phone, we may need a quick special council meeting if we find a good candidate to serve as the interim city administrator, rather than waiting until the 13th of January to have you confirm an interim contract for that. We may need to reach out to you to see if we can get that done by the end of December, so we can have a little overlap with Bob as he leaves the first week of January. If there's no objection to that, just anticipate that. Councilor
Mayor,
Shepherd.
If I could add a few things to that, there might be 2 or 3 other issues we'd want to have council take up. For instance, a search consultant for the city administrator position, a few other things that would be very important, try to get these things started now rather than wait till January. But Jody will send you a list of those things that we may anticipate having to do in the next week or two, and I think she's pulling you folks right now as to your availability for next week. And we appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Shepherd, did you have something else related to the F&A report, or?
I did want to make a comment about the retreat.
Oh, okay.
I would be okay if we didn't have a retreat. I just thought I'd put that out there. I know I'm probably alone, but I just think it's a lot of time, and I can't even recall what conclusions we came to from the last one.
We came up with our entire council goals and objectives.
So we did.
So, okay. Well, you're free to not attend.
If there's no other objection, we'll proceed as planned. Any other report for F&A?
The end of the F&A report.
All right, thank you. Public safety, any report?
No report.
All right, and I don't think council voted to add any items to committee of the whole, unless there's,
Well, there is one item.
oh, Councilmember Ross, did you want to speak to the legislative agenda or the SCA one, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So at the recent Snoqualmie Valley Governments Association, it was brought up to ask each of the cities to come up with their legislative priorities. And so what we wanted to do is come up with maybe 3 or so ideas, and it would be shared with the SVGA. They're thinking by pooling all of our priorities together and talking with our legislatures, they would probably listen more to an area that represents 60,000 people, rather than if Snoqualmie came up with their own legislative agenda, which, would be 14,000 people. And so, and we've also had requests through Sound Cities Association Public Issues Committee, what are our priorities? And we're thinking about, instead of start naming them tonight, that this could be an item during the retreat that we can talk about what is the process of identifying our priorities and then coming up with them. Any?
No, and I think it's probably a place where, we haven't focused, and we probably should, in what is the council's agenda and the political landscape around us. But I don't want to knee-jerk that, as you were saying, trying to vote something tonight. I think we ought to put a process in which we have an ongoing discussion about that and can feed to our partner associations what our priorities are. In the meantime, the mayor has taken his normal responsibilities in those organizations to kind of advise on what's important to the city. I think he has free will to do that for now, forever, or at least as long as he's in office. Well, public comment you can do forever. And in the meantime, once we get this process going, we start to feed into that overall conversation. So, good thing to do.
All right, if there's no further discussion, please note that the staff reports are written first meeting of the month here, but at this time, however, are there any other questions from the staff? I'm sorry, were there other items? Councilman Rosay?
Staff report. Question, Parks and Public Works. We love our holiday lights and every year look forward to it. I've had numerous questions from residents on the type of lights that were used this year, the location of some of those lights, where some of them are a warm white and some are a cool white, and they're mixed on trees in various places and not consistent. I'm just curious as to...
Is that primarily on Center Boulevard?
It's primarily Center Boulevard, but also along some other side streets and things as well. Just wondering if there's a resolution to that this year, or was it, what's the situation?
Well, the resolution is going to present itself to the council of the city next year, regardless whether you like it or not. This will be the last year that the ROA will be taking responsibility for the holiday lights up on or the lights on Center Boulevard.
That's not the question. The question is it going to be resolved this year so that we don't have lights that are of different colors in different locations, in some cases, different colors on the same trees?
No, it would be cost prohibitive to go back and start taking lights down and replacing them at this point.
Is there, I mean, was that the responsibility of the ROA then, or is that where they should take their concerns to, or is that something the city's responsible for?
It's the ROA's responsibility.
Okay.
On Center Boulevard, yeah. So if people have concern, they should direct that to the ROA.
Okay.
I think they've been kind of doing a transition between incandescent and LED lights and doing a bit of a mix, but even on the LED, you can get warm and cool, like you said, so. Depends on the manufacturer, it's a little tricky. Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, I just want to say for the Parks and Public Works Department, there's some very visible work that's been going on the last few weeks. Curb repairs on the Parkway and elsewhere, and sidewalk leveling that is taking care of a whole bunch of areas where that was needed. And this is very visible work that everyone I've talked to is very pleased to see. And I just want to thank you for doing this and for the great work on getting that done. I'll also say that on this past Saturday, we had the Winter Lights. It was incredible, the attendance at that event, and I think that is an event that is very well loved by our community, and I just want to thank the staff for doing a great job on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Mayo. All right, any other comments or questions from the staff at this time on staff reports? All right, with that, at this time, the council will go into executive session regarding litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.0110, Section 1L. I ask that Bob Larson and Bob Sturbank and Assistant City Attorney Anna Astrakhan remain behind. Becky, if you could, please. The executive session is anticipated to last approximately 15 minutes, and there may be action following.
Well, I was on the phone.
All right, everyone else can go home and enjoy their evening at this time.
Can I speak first?
Oh, sorry. If I get everybody's attention, please.
Everybody, hey, listen.
If I could please have everyone's attention.
It's been a great run, and obviously my success is closely tied to all of you folks here, as well as others who've preceded you. But I really want to go by name so everybody understands the depth of my gratitude for everyone here. But the likes of former directors Jim Schaefer, Nancy Tucker, Pat Anderson, Harry A. Strike, Dan Thomason, Bob Rowe, P.J. Rodriguez, and even Rob Orton, who's actually down Gig Harbor, but I'll be seeing him later. And also, more recently, my executive assistant was with me over 10 years, Tia Branson, a great quality person, and I'm sure you folks are going to miss her as much as I did. But also, we had current department heads, folks who I've obviously, with one exception, and I'm going to name her first, Deborah. She's been with me the entire time. Early on in those, I'll call it the chaotic and very difficult years, we pulled it together. And I want to especially thank her for her diligence and her perseverance in a number of issues. But also, I've been able to replace all those other departments I just mentioned, and folks like Mark Hoffman, Mark Carrera, Perry Phipps, Bob Sturbank, Robert Hamoud, Kevin Smith, and Brian Krause filling in ably at the Parks Public Works Director level. Very exceptional people. Those are the folks who make everyone else you obviously look good, and they're the results, and they're the product. Our community is a product of that success as well. But you folks have really carried a lot over these last several years. I'm profoundly grateful for all your work. And also, we've got obviously a number of dedicated employees. When I got on board here, we had probably about 60 employees, I believe. We're up over 120. The growth of the community obviously demanded that growth in the number of employees. And we've been very, very fortunate and able to attract and retain a number of solid people. In fact, I think our retention rate is, I think it's been better than most communities I'm well aware of. It's been over 95% at one point. And I think that's just another example of the support that they get from you folks, obviously, to do their work. I'm also profoundly grateful to the current mayor, Matt Larson, as well as Fuzzy Fletcher. Your support, my ability to come out here, relocate my family, was obviously, I'm very, very grateful for that. Without that, I obviously wouldn't have survived, frankly, for 15 years, if you will, but it's been a great run. And also, the likes of two quality leaders on the council that have been with me this entire run, I believe, Bob Jeans and Brian Holloway. You're the mainstays. You've been the leaders of this council. And I think it really shows in the depth and the quality of all the work that's been done here. And we've also got former council members. In particular, I want to mention Charles Peterson. I think I learned quite a bit from him, being the former mayor, as well as obviously being on council. He taught me a lot about how to get things done in a much different way, but I'm certainly grateful for that. And of course, the current council members. Thank you again for that vote of confidence in our employees tonight. They well deserve it. Obviously, it's a solid vote of confidence in their ability to get things done, and we certainly appreciate that. And last but not least, I relocated my family here over 15 years ago. My wife Jane's been with me for a better part of 36 years, and I'm very grateful for her as well. She's the mainstay in our family, frankly. She holds it together. But also my now adult son, Ben, and my adult daughter, Emma, they've been here for, better part of their lives, frankly, and grew up in Snoqualmie. And they love it here. They both are hopefully Emma's going to come back from Boston someday after graduate school, but Ben's here. He loves coming out here. He knows that meeting Mondays has been a saying in our family for better part of 30 years. I've had meetings and council meeting nights every Monday. And they know that Dad's not around those nights. But anyway, I'm profoundly grateful for all this. And I can assure you that my heart will remain with Snoqualmie. We've done a lot of things here. And I'm hoping to come back, and I'm hoping that we're welcome when we do come back. But again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Warren.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Jody. Jody's on my list here. I apologize. You got caught in the middle of a couple of things here. But yes, Jody Warren, our city clerk. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Bob, thank you. I mean, a 15-year tenure is exceptionally rare for a city administrator to serve a city for 15 years. That says a lot about Bob's capacity to negotiate a lot of changing personalities, both public staff and elected officials over those years. But the city's tremendously benefited, particularly during a time of great change, for that stability that offered. So again, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
I wish you well. All right, so with that, everybody else gets to go home and enjoy their evening. We're going to go into executive session again, the last about 15 minutes. And have a good evening.